That's all for you. Yeah, yo. There whenever it matters, and even more when you feel like it doesn't. Protect you so you never feel like you wasn't. Know I'm right alongside you. Either that or I'm behind you, but always got you. End the discussion, nothing means more. First one to offer is shoulders for what you reach for. Thought I saw the eyes of the world until I seen yours. And know that I ain't see a better view yet. I'm with whatever, so don't ever you fret. Know that you covered, not a hurdle or a heartbreak. A change what a partake, cause none of them won't ever get comfortable in your walkway. My job is to aware you, fully loaded, prepare you for all of the above that I'm never letting get near you. But still in all, give you every advantage I found. Couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Vibe to it.
Most definitely.
And I love your what if theory, because you posted something on yesterday on Facebook, and it blew my mind about what if Killer Mongrel was successful, especially if you live in the fire. I want that on t-shirt.
King Killmonger. Yeah, yes. I was just like that.
Yes, and how that plays relevant today with the protests and police brutality of how, you know, violence against violence. You know, some people said two wrongs don't make a right. But if you go back to your history, for every liberation, there was an extremist. You know, if you look at apartheid.
That's the essential definition of what war
is.
It's two opposing sides, and then there's a victor and a loser.
Right.
And regardless of their beliefs, in humanity, those two sides have to eventually clash and say, well, you know, I don't like your way of doing it. I will fight you for it, bruh. You know.
No, you're right. You're right.
War ensues. That's the concept I was talking to my kids about. I'm like, by all definition, Hitler was waging war on the world, saying his idea was right.
Right.
And the world pushed back.
Right.
You know, so I mean, war is, you can say war is wrong.
Right.
But there is justification in saying, if there's a side that is literally tormenting, terrorizing, murdering, that's their view. That's the way they do things.
Right.
And it's not right. It's not, you know, there's no morality to their way.
Right.
They are willing to murder innocent people to impose their way of life. To oppose that doesn't make you wrong, even if you have to kill that opposing side. You know, people from that opposing warring faction, so to speak. It doesn't make you the same as them.
Right.
If you have to kill off somebody that's trying to kill you, that's what war is. However, in the event that, you know, the extreme, because people will say, if I'm going to kill someone, that's extreme.
Right.
Right? To say, oh, I'll kill for my beliefs as an American. If it came down to it, I want to be free. I don't want to be a slave. I want to be whatever. I'll fight for that. I'll kill for that. That's extreme, right?
Right.
So the problem is that I was trying to tell my kids, I'm like, if we had to, if Killmonger came and said, yo, I'll fight for y'all.
Right.
And in fact, here's some weapons to do it. As long as you join me, let's get rid of this whole, you know, racist stuff.
Right.
From here on out, let's just switch it out. Let's drain the swamp.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm like, what would that reality look like? What would that be like? We would have to worry about a new ruler, technically.
Right.
But would that be so bad if you didn't have to be afraid of being around? You didn't have to be afraid of, you know, starting a business.
Right.
People, you know, judging you first on how you look and saying, nah, you know, no loans for you.
Right.
If all of that got changed by one takeover.
Right.
I said, would that be bad? No more police brutality. As far as, you know, if he kept his word, you know, no more oppression. I'm like, what would that be like? And my kids, man, we had a great conversation.
That's awesome. I wish I was there.
Yeah.
Like, there's a fly in the wall, you know. Because I know your kids hit you up with some gems too. You're like, you know what? I never thought of it that way.
Yes. Yeah. And there a lot of people are like, wait, how old are your kids? Isn't that little deep? Like, oh no, they're teenagers. They're teenagers. They're ready for it. But I have, and I told them in that conversation, I said, I have tried to protect your innocence from unveiling all of the ugliness of American history and abroad, world history, as it comes to colonizers, as it comes to people raping and pillaging other cultures just for their financial gain or whatever. And I said, I've tried to keep that veil down as long as I can, but I can't, as a parent, send you into adulthood. It's only like 4 years from now, with, naive concepts of how the world is. So that conversation was really, we've had a few, but that one really got their minds going. And I'm just driving the car, listening, and they're going back and forth, and I'm like, all right. Good questions, kids. Good questions.
But the one thing too is, I think, which is really deep about this conversation, when you bring up Killmonger, his extremist comes out of love for his people. He grew up in L.A. His father gets killed. He learns, he goes to school, he does the right thing. But over time, he sees his people disenfranchised. He plays by the rules, and shit's still occurring. And throughout that love and that frustration comes that extremist. When you get to Hitler, to me, I feel like he was more just an opportunist. You had Germany in depletion after World War I. Chaos. And so he used his false ideology as a way to stir up hatred towards other people to build Germany. So there is a distinct difference between the two ideologies. But what happens is people kind of mix them into together, saying, yeah, he wanted to kill a lot of people. He didn't want to kill he didn't want to kill people. He just wanted to do right for his people. You know what I mean? So how do you kind of explain that to people in a way that, because sometimes when you think of righteous war, you think of righteous war being an actual moron. It's like, what's righteous in war? But without war, you don't have liberation. Without war, you don't have the end of the American Revolution War. Without the Civil War, you don't have emancipation. So how do you distinct the two difference, or either way?
I mean, it's Killmonger as a character, for the movie character that was depicted in the movie, is a very layered character, and he's very close to what we as Black Americans really deal with, which is, you're talking about trauma on a daily basis. If you're connected to true information, you have to see a video about an innocent child being murdered by a police officer. No consequences, right? And the name, I had to show my kids a picture that it was a collage of all of these Black people that have been murdered, killed by the cops, right? And I'm like, how many is in this picture? And there was like, too many. I'm like, I said, now imagine someone saying, get over it. That's a PTSD, all in its own right. And Killmonger as a character is very much just as complex as his character arc is. I mean, you and I are living through that same predicament, to say, even if it's not your family directly. If you're disconnected enough to not be upset about what's happening, all of these murders, then that's an individual problem. You have disconnected yourself from your humanity to say, oh, well, that's somebody else's problem. No, it could be yours tomorrow. It could be your family members tomorrow, just on a routine stop. If someone of authority, police officer, says, you know what, get out of the car. I don't want to get out of my car. I haven't done anything wrong. Hey, I need backup. They're being belligerent, and I got to use force. Crack, tase, and probably get shot. That's how serious our reality is. Unfortunately, not all of us go that route to say, I'm gonna fight back every single time. We have to pick our battles and then pretend like it's okay to go to work, go to sleep, feed our kids, and wake up and do it all again. Like none of that trauma is truly affecting us. So any of us could take that same extreme notion, go through the ranks of military, you know, Navy SEAL or whatever you want to say, special forces, and go rogue.
Yeah.
You know, with that same trauma always there, saying, you know what, all I need is the right tools, and I'm gonna get these people back. I'm gonna pay back for all that trauma I lived through.
Right.
And in the movie, you do get that moment where Killmonger says, you know, everything was taken from me.
Yeah, I remember that.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's a real, super real line. I don't think we would have gotten that real transparency if it wasn't directed by Brian Coogler.
I totally agree.
You need a black director to have a voice that literally speaks, you know, from a space that's real.
Right.
Otherwise, he would have been some cliche. Well, I just want to be like the Joker. I just want to burn it down, safe. You know, he wasn't like that. He had some real core trauma that he was functioning under, and you can say from another side of the coin, yo, he was too extreme. He was choking that lady. He shot that woman. He openly admitted he murdered and killed on the continent of Africa through his missions, and he said he killed children of his enemies if he needed to. Right? Ethically, that challenges a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But trauma, you know, PTSD is kind of hard to, you know, well, don't do that. Don't do that. It can literally mess up someone's whole mind. And that grief mixed in with that PTSD is a really, really terrible mix. But if that, let's say, just run a whole gamut, man, Killmonger came in with the power to absolutely, you know, usurp everything that America's been doing, the power, the White House, all that. Trump gets kicked out of the way, everything. And now power is given to someone who is tired of the status quo. Says, I'm not gonna, it's not acceptable nowhere. I don't care where you are. If, you know, let me know if you got some problems, I'm gonna come handle it for you. You got the power to do it. In fact, I'm gonna give you the power. But you gotta plead your loyalty to me. That would be a huge, you know, upset to every person in this country that never wanted to see that happen. So, but we would be the benefactor of that. Black people, black and brown people would be the benefactors of that. The only problem is you got somebody that's real ready to, you know, if you disobey or you know, you don't like the way he doing it.
That's right.
We don't know how that would go. But it's a great hypothetical. That's what I think. So.
Right, and I think the beauty is that you don't know. Let's say if he does take power, right?
Yeah.
And say the true essence of a man is when you give him power.
Yeah.
And would it have been a democracy, or would it have been a monarchy where his word is word and everything else is irrelevant?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be Killmonger's, you know, state. What is his way or the highway? And the highway may be death.
Right.
So, I mean, he showed that throughout his brief stint of power, which is, yo, do it.
Right.
Or get out of my way. You're in my way. You know, kill. You know. So, I don't think it would go. It wouldn't be a peaceful scenario, but we would still be benefactors.
Right.
As much as there are white Americans who aren't racist. They weren't raised racist. They were actually raised to love.
Right.
They have family members that you know, have black people in their family.
Yep.
They got married into. So now they've actually interacted with black people, and they're like, you know what? You've changed my views on black people. I never had a black friend before. I love you. Right.
Right.
Though just as much as those white Americans benefit from white privilege, which is to say, you know, they don't get randomly stopped.
Right.
They don't get suspected first from, you know, random stop and frisk.
Right.
Things like that, you know. The same way they benefit from the current landscape that's here, we would benefit from a possible Killmonger, you know, coming in and saying, nah, all the white people are going to be suspect first.
Right.
Let's run, stop. Let me talk, you know, arrest that man. He looks like, you know, he could be a racist.
There you go. Right.
He's wearing the wrong kind of shirt. Let's see your ID, sir.
Right.
You're like, what are you doing? I'm just walking. I don't care.
Yeah.
Let me see. A total paradigm shift. But just seeing that, that's what people are like. Yo, I would read the hell out of this comic book. If they did a King Killmonger story, I'm like, I would too. If they wrote it right, as long as they wrote it right, I would read it too, man.
I would too, definitely. I think it's important too because you want that what if scenario, because you know how like when you see movies and you would think it would never happen, and then it happens in our lifetime. You know what I mean? So it kind of gives you a precursor of what would it look like if it ever occurred.
Right. And that would be that's why I think the conversation with my kids were important, because if you don't give them, especially during all this, there's a lot of pain happening right now. There's people dying during the protest, and there's still injustices happening. And I asked my kids, I'm like, so tell me your understanding. Let me hear your understanding. I didn't force it. I didn't say, hey, this is what I want you to believe about what's happening. I said, let me hear your understanding. And so I was listening first. And they got pieces. They're like, the world is mad because George Floyd died. I'm like, okay. And why do you think they're mad? Exactly. What exactly are they? So what are they protesting for? And I let them speak and let them really articulate what they thought was going on. And then I just put in the pieces. And I still was asking them questions. I'm like, what if that happened to me?
Right.
What if that happened to your father? Right. How would it make you feel? Right. And I mean, if you don't give your children the ability to actually voice, even their fractured understanding, let them give you the answers first, and then piece the whole bridge together after that, because they may surprise you. My kids, I'm like, how many videos have you watched? Right. And they were like, well, I saw this one and I saw that. I was like, my son mentioned the rubber bullet size. I was like, I just saw that. Right. So they may surprise you, but it's real, man. You got to talk to your kids. You got to give them that opportunity.
And then I think one of the big scenes too in Black Panther is when Killmonger went back and saw his father get murdered. Yeah. Like he replayed that what happened and saw it was a black man that killed his father. And so that kind of reframes into his mind his justification of killing anybody that's in his way too. You know what I mean?
It's that torment, man. It's trauma. It's real trauma. Like that's something that it's not to be taken lightly, and it's easy to say he was evil. But it's more complex than that. Mental illness is more complex than that. Right. And to call him a villain is easy. Right. But like I said, anybody, the family of George Floyd, if they were so inclined to say, nah, I want revenge. Yeah. Them going to jail ain't enough. Right. You know what I'm saying? Are they evil? Are they villains? Right. If they say, yo, no, you killed him in cold blood. I saw it. I want revenge. Right. That's the easy thing to say. Well, oh, no, because of my belief system, you shouldn't do that. And that's evil. But, that's what wars are started over, man. It's all throughout history.
I totally agree. Because when you bringing it up, make me think about Fidel Castro. You have some portions of the world that hates him and some portion of the world that love him. Portion of the world called him a dictator, which I understand because he did kill people. But at the same time, he helped South Africa against apartheid. He was the only leader and country that helped. Because if you go back, when Nelson Mandela was free, the first country he went to was Cuba. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think Mandela had to make a choice. He's like, yes, I understand he did this, but at the same time, he did this for my people. Yeah. And I have to recognize that. And I think that's the one thing people has to recognize is that people are complex. You can't label a person this way. You can't. Because like you said, Killmonger had different layers to him. You know what I mean? He was angry, but he also loved.
He was a victim. He was a victim of circumstance, a victim of society. They didn't show it in the movie, but he grew up without a father.
Yeah.
He had to grow up without a father in America.
Right.
And they had to cut that out, obviously for time reasons.
Right.
But don't downplay what that's like, especially if you live in a hood, especially if you live in an impoverished area. Right. Especially if you're aspiring to be successful and get past the trauma of, I don't have my dad anymore. Right. That was the only person. They don't talk about his mother, right? So, or anybody else loving him throughout that childhood to adulthood. That's trauma. Yeah. And I didn't have my father. I had my mom. I had 4 brothers. I was lucky to have male influence to say, you know what, this is how you act. This is how you treat women. This is how, I had all of that because I was the youngest of 4 brothers. So I had older brothers to influence me all the way to adulthood. And I got examples of how man can act, how to be married and how to treat your kids, all that stuff. Right. They skipped that part in the movie. They just said, he's a kid, now he's an adult, right? And he's angry. Right. But I would say anybody, sit a 30-plus-year-old black man from America that's been living in America from multiple walks of life. Try to talk to multiple if you can, and ask them about, being raised in America. Right. Ask them if anybody in their family has been killed unjustly. Right. Whether it be from police or society, local stuff. It really doesn't, because, as a child, you're not choosing those things. You have to. He said, and that was a sad part. A lot of people overlooked. I loved it when his father, in that dream state, said, no tears for me. And he was like, death is just a part. It's just a part of living out here. Yeah. That was from a kid's perspective. Yeah. And he probably, I think that was a head nod from the director to say, we had to cut that part of him growing up. Because that was Killmonger as an adult, but he was represented by a young kid. Yeah. And he basically had to say, death is a part of life out here in these streets. Yeah. And he had to learn that as a child. So to really, downplay and say, he was misogynistic and he choked that lady. Listen,
he was broken.
Listen, that's a broken mind that you're talking about.
And then the one thing too is, if you go back to the movie too, is the birthmark in his lip. Yeah. But he never knew where that birthmark came from. No. And then later in his life, he realized that. And I think that scarred him the most, that he had a family out there. Yeah. And he felt like nobody came to come get him. And that goes to that premise that he was alone. Right. I mean, listen, man, you can say all the things, but until you empathize, and empathy is not given. If you look at the definition of empathy, it says it's a skill. Right. It's an actual skill to try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's not a default thing that everybody understands. Empathy takes practice. Right. So until you try to genuinely put yourself in someone else's shoes like that, man, and black women are some of the most powerful people on this planet, because they're not just living for themselves. They got 4 kids. My mom had 4 children and said, bump all that. I'm raising my kids. I can't even fathom. Now I can kind of get it, but I only got 2. We got my 2. And she hustled, man. My whole life, I never wanted for anything. Right. But now in hindsight, I'm like, do you understand how hard that is? That's crazy. So, but empathy takes practice. You got to put yourself in someone else's shoes before you say, oh, they're crazy. How could he possibly think, that forcibly taking over the government is going to help people? Listen, I mean, it seems short-sighted, but it you don't know how that would feel. Yeah. For a lot of people that are in terror constantly, right, of where they live, they're in jail, incarcerated.
would a Killmonger ruler say, yo, stop all this jailing of my people?
Yeah.
You're out. If you're, they may have some technology to probably, cross-reference if they really crazy. But, little things like that. It would be a whole new regime, man.
Right.
But, that was the point of what I posted. And I love storytelling. I love really just thinking about people as characters, because and I have a saying where if I don't enjoy the antagonist in any superhero story, if they don't feel genuine, if they don't feel believable, I can't really enjoy the story as much.
Right.
You can have a superhero character with the best power set ever. That's entertainment.
Right.
But you're going to draw me in with a really, really well-written character that's layered, that's complex, that's not just, oh, he's evil, that's why he does stuff. Oh, okay, cool. There's only 7 million of those, but, why is your character, what's your motivation for doing stuff? So that's why I love doing these kind of things. It's been fueling me as a character designer for years.
Right. And so, I enjoyed this conversation with you, man. We should do this more often, man. I love this, man. The thought-provoking dialogue. I got one more question for you. I love your what if. All right. Let's say if you made a comic and it was based on Dr. King and Malcolm X and they were alive. Fuck X-Men. All right. This is your story.
Right.
What would that story be if they were still alive?
Oh man. It's the beautiful thing is that I think the progression of even before Malcolm X died, that man changed from he had a very, very stark change in who he was, his personality, his belief system in the short time that he, started his whole quest.
Right.
To fight for Black and brown and here in America. But right before he died, man, he did that pilgrimage. He went and changed his perspective. So him getting back and actually, moving forward with civil rights or activism or, trying to find solutions alongside of Martin Luther King. A lot of people don't understand why Martin Luther King was truly assassinated. It was not for civil rights. He had a long couple of years marching and doing civil rights. They didn't just decide one day, you know what, I'm tired of you doing people marching. That wasn't a real thing. You have to do research. Martin Luther King put out a video, and he was being interviewed that said, there's poor whites that are getting subsidies for farm land. And we're going to go and request the same subsidies for land, for, our ownership and things like that. If poor whites can get it, why can't blacks get it? Shit clap. Wait, what now? You're trying to empower people to do a absolutely legal system to get money that if they apply right, they should be able to get it. Oh, hell no. Fit clack. And he was assassinated not long after.
Right.
So if that didn't happen, you're talking about two very enlightened and informed individuals coming. If they sat down at a table, I would see it very, very, I see it now clearly. You have two people that are willing to be open-minded about information. A Malcolm X that isn't angry to work with, or, I should say not so angry that he won't work with someone. And I don't think he ever suffered from that specifically, but literally, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, how do you feel about working about getting funds and finances back into the hands of Black people? I don't see there being a disagreement at all with that. We're going to do it through the legal channels. We're going to, here's the paperwork, here's what we researched and got through. Let's work together to do that. I mean, if you empower 500 black business owners or farmers, you can change a whole climate that say, well, our Black farmers now have the money they need to feed our community.
Right.
Let's do a strike for all Black people to stop shopping at the store, grocery store.
Yeah.
Milk, cheese, bread, all of this. Vegetables, anything you need.
Right.
We got the means to do that now. I don't know. Did you get a chance to read the newest X-Men comic that came out?
No, I didn't get a chance.
I can't spoil it then. I can't spoil it.
Nah, don't spoil it for me. I'm gonna check it out.
But no, I think the amazing part is when you have two very influential minds that are on the same path, man. It's as the possibilities are boundless. What can't they solve with the amount of people that were supporting them? What can't they solve? So my book, you got to read the X-Men joint.
I'm going to do that.
But yeah, I'm talking about literally, they would have changed America in some very, very stark ways. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were two brilliant men, very brilliant, very, very smart. Their lives were taken way too soon. But yeah, I don't have any reason to doubt, man. They would have changed city after city, saying, no, we got the money for farms here. We got the money for farms in your city, your city, your city. If you want to do it in your city, contact us. We'll let you know how to do what we did for this city and that city. And from there, yeah, I think, unfortunately, they would still be targets. If they did
no, you're right. You're right.
They would be more targets if they successfully changed it. And I think my story would be more about how to protect them from at that point. Once you change a whole civilization like that, man, you just got to protect those leaders and then pass the information so it's not just housed in their minds alone. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the critical thing too is like later in Dr. King's life, he lost the youth. Like the youth, like wasn't even paying attention to him anymore.
It's hard. It's hard to.
Yeah. And so they think the key thing Malcolm X would have done was kept that youth movement going on, because the youth movement was kind of leaning to him, because he had his message was a little bit more resonated more. It resonated more, where Dr. King was at the time, yes. But little kids, to be frank, they got tired of getting their ass whooped on marching.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They got tired of like, all right, I can't fight back, so I'm gonna let this dude just whoop my ass for no reason and just keep marching.
Right.
And then like Malcolm X, like, yo, if a motherfucker hit you, you hit that motherfucker back.
Protect yourself. Right.
Protect yourself. Yeah. Right. And so I think that would have been a key component too, is that he would have brought the youth back to Dr. King too. And I could feel like Dr. King would have been more behind the scenes, and Malcolm X would have been like the vocal man in that team, I think.
Yeah. See, with that, I think the thing that I love about both of them is you can get them in a room and talk to anybody. They were too intelligent to not to be challenged.
Right.
So Martin Luther King, whether he's behind the scenes or not, if you were to tap his brain about a solution, he had very, very articulate, he was super intelligent. Malcolm X was the same. But the only difference from where they were was that motivation.
Right.
Which is it anger or is it problem solving?
Right.
And that's where if they erased that and they was on the same page about problem solving,
right,
you got a beautiful, beautiful scenario that could have played out, and I just can't see it going further in that time frame. They would have had to be protected in order to get to higher levels in America. But come on, man, the presidency, I wouldn't want to be the president of this country. No. They said, "Hey, man, you want to give it a shot?" No, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'll just be an influential, person. But I don't want that job. But I want to help with my people, and any way I can do that, that's where I think those two would form like Voltron, man. It would be crazy.
It would have been a beautiful thing to see them come together and do something powerful. And I think also one of the big points too is Malcolm X was embody of that people could change, because his younger life wasn't roses and candy. He had some real shit.
Right.
But he's a prime example of that. Even though you can go to jail, you can change your life, and that's what he did. And I think he resonates more with people because he went through that trauma. Don't get me wrong, Dr. King did, because he lost his mother.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. I can imagine being to lose your mother. You know what I mean? I can't imagine that. And then also getting your house bombed. I can't imagine that fear that you put on himself and his kids. But Malcolm X, even though he put that on himself, but at the same time, it's like, all right, cool, I messed up, I redeemed myself, and I'm here to help my people. Right. So I think X message resonate a little bit more than Dr. King, but at the same time, they're both just as powerful if they came together.
Right. I agree, man. I agree. I would read that book.
So you gonna make it?
Look, that sounds like a good premise for What If,
Yeah, man. You know what I mean? And you gotta add different components to it too, like unsung heroes too, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because anybody born from that kind of leadership, if we had that kind of union of our leaders, social leaders, community leaders, and they were protected. We've had so many amazing leaders.
Right.
Marcus Garvey. I'm talking about, the line just goes on and on.
The lineage.
Love yourself. Yeah, love yourself. Empower yourself, Black people. Work together. And they've been systematically murdered, taken out, in prison, silenced. Yeah. And we're like, oh, never mind. Never mind. We ain't trying to get killed.
Right.
So let's just, all right, well, let's calm down. But if we can protect those leaders, man, the children that would come out of that, the society, the next generation that would come from that would be phenomenal. And we can still do it. We still can do it. I've had a conversation with a good friend of mine. I'm like, you can look at the way Asian communities support Asian business, Asian entrepreneurship is phenomenal. Right. I'm talking about banks, medicine, everything, grocery stores, whatever you need, and they all support.
Right.
And Hispanics have that as well. I said we have little slices of it throughout cities here and there, man. But it's sad to say our generation will basically idolize a product from another culture and say, "Oh, I'll spend $1,000 on that, but I ain't buying your stuff. I don't want to buy your stuff. I want to buy their stuff."
Right, I feel you. But also, too, I think it's the traumatization, going back to it, because if you go back to our history, we did have Black-owned communities, and that shit was burned down.
Burned down. Yeah, man, 100 years, that just passed. What happened in Tulsa, Black Wall Street had that. But we have to find a way. We got to find a way to keep that legacy. If our generation continue to be consumers, instead of innovators and creators and business owners, stop preaching the mentality of go get a job. There's nothing wrong with a job.
No.
However, that should be a stepping stone if you have to go that route into saying, learn that business. If you're passionate about this job, learn how to do the business stuff. And then start your own business.
That's right.
Compete with that. Especially if you're in a tutelage stage and you're learning under a boss.
Right.
Pay attention to that boss. Pay attention to how they run their business. Why are they successful? I entered the comic industry no different. And that's why I'm able to do Tuskegee Airs right now. Greg wanted to do it before now, not Tuskegee Airs, but we had some other comic ideas. I'm like, nah, we don't know enough. We don't know enough about that industry, printing, selling, all that stuff. So I learned it. And then once I got a better understanding, I shared it with Greg. And here we are, with our comic book. We self-publish, we're independent. We can take our books anywhere we want. No one can tell us what to write.
Right.
We got it was weird because we did an interview, and I'm sorry, but
No,
the first one of the first interviews we had during the Kickstarter, it was like, so we noticed there were no white people in your first book, and I was like,
yeah.
That's
like you're supposed to get a guilt trip.
I was like, no, you're right. You're right. You know what? That was not intentional.
Right.
But yes, you're right. That is true. And I was like, what? For real? Okay, I guess so. But that anybody else would have been like, yo, let's throw in Susie, let's throw in Katie. But it didn't even phase us, like, honestly. Like, thinking back in hindsight, we was like, oh, I guess not. No. But we got some white characters coming. They in there. Right. Just no, in the first book, no, there was no white characters. And it wasn't to exclude them. It was just like, no, we had a story to tell, and we just told it.
Right. You know. And it was from your perspective, and that's the beautiful thing of being a creator, is that you create your own world. And every time, if that person fits that puzzle, then you'll add them to the puzzle. If they don't, oh well, you know.
Right. You know? I mean, that happens to us in the entertainment all the time. It's, you know, look, sometimes we're supposed to feel, you know, achieved if we become a token character. Like, yo, I mean, we got that one black guy in there. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yay. At least we got that one. Yeah. Okay. But they got 7 or 8, 9, you know. So it wasn't to exclude. I can say that it was not done intentionally, but it wasn't even a problem. We was like, okay, cool. I guess so. But yeah, we got some white characters in there though. It's coming. It's coming.
All right, I got that exclusive on That Is It Now. I said I got that exclusive on That Is It Now.
Right. We got them in there. But no, I appreciate you having me, man. I do.
I appreciate it too. But I got one more final question.
Come on, let's get it.
You know, you're a big fan of Avengers, right?
Yeah, I love the Avengers. Yeah.
Okay. If you go back to Black history, if you can create your Black version of Avenger from Black historical figures, who would be the original members of your Avengers?
Dang it. That's too hard, man. That's a lot. That's too hard. Yeah, I gotta pull up names on Google.
Don't cheat.
Yeah. There's I want to do something with Black inventors that I've not seen done yet. And I have a graphic that has a list of some of the most influential, but it's like a whole poster.
Right.
But I only got the top half.
Right.
And I'm like, I gotta find that poster. But there's books and other sources for it. But no, I don't know the names by heart. But there's some amazing inventors that I would love to put in some sort of story. I don't really like the idea of taking historical figures and manipulating history to fit.
No,
you know, but that doesn't mean that I can't base a character and have that character represent the same thing or the same mentality, things like that. So, but that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. Because I mean, you know, I'm talking like Harriet Tubman would be. I mean, she would be on par with. If she is not the leader of the field team, I don't know, man. It's like, what you doing? But I mean, like, how far can we go back? That's just
throw out names out that comes to mind. Like, who you think would be if this would be the first Avenger film, who would be the original? What was it? The original 5?
Yeah, no,
who
man.
Would be the original 5?
That's too deep. That's too deep to just come off the top. Too deep to come off the top. That's a lot of beautiful.
I'll give you 2 of mine. Okay, one would be Marcus Garvey, and the other one would be W.E.B. Du Bois. Those would be my first 2.
Those are good. Those are dope ones. Yeah. But see, that's why I'm like, you know, are you talking about like the whole team? You gotta think about
I'm talking about the original 5 that starts the shit off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you understand, my brain is exploding.
Yes.
Have you been to the museum in DC?
I have not. I need to go.
Ooh, listen,
Corona's fucking everything up for everybody.
Right. I was lucky enough to go before all that hit. That museum is jam packed with amazing information. Like your feet will start hurting before you finish going through the whole thing. But I'm talking about there's no time span.
No time span.
I'm talking about they got like the Dora Milaje was based on a real, actual tribe of people, the women warriors.
Because you got the Eternals coming out soon, so you can go way back. It's up to you, man. I'm just saying, you pick your vibe, bro.
Yeah, my timeline, my brain is there's too many to pick from. I'd be like, give me one of those.
Right.
Those warriors back then, man, it was gangster. They didn't have guns. They had sword. Yeah, so that would be tough. I didn't even think about that.
All right, that's all right. That'll be for the next interview.
Right. I'm gonna take notes and then I'm gonna come back ready. So.
Nah, I appreciate it, man. But yo, thank you for taking the time to chat it up with me. I think this was an important conversation because I just felt like it was cool to talk about the fantasy world of comic and blend it into our today's society and how they kind of mesh in together. And so I thought that was a dope conversation, and that was a dope post that you had that engagement with your kids, man. So I appreciate that, brother.
Most definitely, man. Salute to you, man. Keep doing your thing, man.
I appreciate that, bro. You got one more thing to say to people that's watching when it comes to illustrating being a form of protest? Because that's the one thing you see a lot of illustrators creating images for Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Greg Ford. So can you link the two, how illustration is a form of protest?
It bothered me a lot, man. And if you interview Greg Burnham, man, I had a long conversation with him about, like, I was really going through it. Like, I don't even know what to draw to say how I feel because I'm angry. And I have to be responsible. I got kids. So like I have to be responsible with my voice. I have people that follow me. And it really weighed on me.